In 1838, the Army forced 16,000 Cherokee from the southern Appalachians to Oklahoma. 4,000 died. The medicine survived. Number 20 was documented by James Mooney in 1891 and confirmed by clinical research in 2009. Number 7 kept people alive on the march itself. These are 25 Cherokee healing remedies that survived a forced march of 1,000 miles. Number 25, sourwood for fever and heart. Oxydendrum, arboreum sourwood, the mountain tree whose small white flowers produce the honey considered finest in the southern Appalachians, was the Cherokee fever and cardiac medicine. The bark tea was given for fever, the leaves for the heart palpitations and irregularity that age and hard labor produced. Androsaki and related compounds in sourwood have confirmed astringent and mild cardiac effects. The sourwood honey from bees foraging on these flowers carries the same bioactive compounds in a form the community consumed daily. Number 24. Wild strawberry for digestive illness and fever. Fragaria virginiana, wild strawberry, the small, intensely flavored native strawberry of eastern forest edges, was used by Cherokee healers for the diarrhea and fever of summer illness. The leaves and roots, prepared as a tea, delivered tannins with confirmed astringent and anti-diarrheal activity. The fruit, eaten freely in season, provided vitamin C and ellagic acid with confirmed antimicrobial properties. Number 23. Black gum bark for toothache and inflammation. Nyssa sylvatica, black gum, black tupelo. The brilliant autumn red tree of Appalachian forests provided Cherokee communities with a bark medicine for the toothache and inflammatory conditions that the Mooney documentation specifically names as primary applications. The bark was chewed directly for toothache, delivering tannins and phenolic compounds with confirmed analgesic and antimicrobial activity. The same bark simmered into a tea addressed the inflammatory joint conditions of aging. Black gum fringe, strips of bark worked into a brush shape, was the traditional Cherokee toothbrush, delivering antimicrobial compounds directly to the teeth and gums with every use. Number 22. Trout lily for wound healing. Erythronium americanum, trout lily, the spring ephemeral whose mottled leaves appeared beneath the forest canopy before most other plants had broken ground, was the Cherokee early season wound medicine. The leaves, briefly heated and applied as a poultice, addressed infected wounds and swelling. The corm contains steroidal saponins with confirmed anti-inflammatory properties. Number 21. Redbud bark for fever. Cercis canadensis. Redbud, the small understory tree whose magenta flowers bloomed before its leaves, was the Cherokee fever medicine for the specific pattern of fever accompanied by congestion and body ache. The bark, simmered into a tea, promoted diaphoresis, the sweating that breaks fever. Flavonoids and phenolic acids in redbud bark have confirmed anti-inflammatory properties. Number 20. Serviceberry for nutrition and diarrhea. A melanchier species, serviceberry and shadbush, the tree that bloomed white in the mountains when the shad were running, was both the first substantial fruit of the season and a diarrhea medicine. The berries, eaten fresh or dried, provided iron and antioxidant compounds. The bark tea addressed the diarrhea that contaminated water and uncertain food produced. Mooney documented serviceberry in 1891 as a consistently used Cherokee medicinal and nutritional plant. Number 19. Indian cucumber root for kidney and fever. Mediola virginiana. Indian cucumber, the world-leafed woodland plant whose white rhizome tasted exactly like cucumber, was used by Cherokee healers for kidney complaints and as a fever-reducing preparation. The plant was also eaten as food, the crisp rhizome consumed raw in spring when fresh vegetables were not yet available. Here's the fact that makes every remedy on this list an act of extraordinary preservation. The Trail of Tears March of 1838 to 1839 killed roughly 1 in 4 Cherokee people. The survivors arrived in Oklahoma with nothing the Army allowed them to keep except what was in their memory. The healers who survived the march spent years identifying Oklahoma plants that corresponded to what they had known, building a new pharmacopoeia from memory in unfamiliar territory. Number 18. Wild Ginger Cherokee Preparation. Asarum canadense, wild ginger, appeared in the Pioneer Women and Ozark episodes for nausea and digestive applications. The Cherokee preparation was distinct. The root was used specifically as an antispasmodic for the chest pain and muscle cramping that strenuous work and cold exposure produced. Compounds in wild ginger have confirmed antispasmodic activity in smooth and striated muscle. Number 17. Indian physic for purging and immune support. Gilenia trifoliata, Indian physic, Bauman's root, the woodland plant of Appalachian slopes, was one of the most specifically documented Cherokee medicinal plants in the Mooney records. Used as an emetic for acute poisoning and as a general purgative for illness, the plant contains glycosides with confirmed emetic and cathartic properties. The Cherokee application was precise about dose. The amount that produced beneficial purging versus the amount that produced distress was the knowledge that distinguished a trained healer from an untrained one. Number 16. Seneca snake root for respiratory illness. Polygala seneca, Seneca snake root, was used by Cherokee communities for the severe respiratory infections that European contact had introduced to populations with no prior immunity. The root contains triterpenoid saponins with confirmed expectorant activity, the same mechanism as commercial expectorant medications. Number 15. Hepatica for liver and as the first spring medicine. Hepatica nobilis, liver leaf. Hepatica, the small wildflower that bloomed in earliest spring before the snow had fully left the forest floor, was named for its 3-lobed leaves that resembled a liver. In the Cherokee tradition, it was among the first plants gathered each spring as a general liver and digestive tonic. Flavonoids in hepatica have confirmed liver protective effects. Number 14. American chestnut bark before the blight. Castanea dentata, American chestnut, once the dominant tree of the eastern Appalachians, comprising up to a quarter of the forest canopy before the chestnut blight destroyed it between 1904 and 1940, was a primary Cherokee medicinal tree. The bark was used for the heart conditions, diarrhea, and respiratory illness that Mooney documented. The nuts provided dense protein and fat nutrition. Here's what James Mooney documented that no one before him had recorded systematically. The document recorded over 300 plant formulas. Modern pharmacological research has confirmed the therapeutic activity of those plants at rates significantly above chance, meaning the formulas reflected genuine clinical knowledge. What Mooney captured was an edge of a tradition. The center was never written down. Number 13. False Solomon seal for wound healing. Myanthemum racemosum, false Solomon seal, the arching woodland plant with the cluster of red berries, was the Cherokee preparation for the infected wounds and burns that daily life in a forested landscape produced constantly. The roots, mashed and applied as a poultice, delivered compounds with confirmed anti-inflammatory and wound-healing properties. The berries, despite being mildly purgative, were eaten in small quantities in times of food scarcity. Number 12. Ironwood bark for strength and wounds. Austria virginiana, hawthornbeam, and ironwood, the small, dense-wooded understory tree of Appalachian forests, was used by Cherokee healers for the muscle weakness and fatigue that illness produced, and as an astringent wound wash. The extremely hard wood, the hardest native wood in eastern North America, gave the tree its name and its character in Cherokee medicine. The tree of unusual strength was given to those who needed strength restored. The tannins in the bark delivered the wound-washing activity. Number 11. Butterfly weed Cherokee application. Asclepias tuberosa butterfly weed pleurisy root appeared in the Civil War and Ozark episodes. The Cherokee application documented by Mooney was specifically for the pneumonia that European disease contact had made one of the primary causes of death in Cherokee communities. The diaphoretic and anti-inflammatory properties of the root were applied at the moment of highest fever, the crisis point where survival was determined. Number 10. Blue lobelia for syphilis and respiratory illness. Lobelia syphilitica, great blue lobelia, was used by Cherokee healers for the syphilis that European contact had introduced and for the respiratory complications of late-stage disease. The alkaloids in blue lobelia overlap with those in Lobelia inflata, but produce different ratios of activity, with less emetic effect and more sustained anti-inflammatory action. The Cherokee use of blue lobelia for the joint and respiratory symptoms of syphilis was pharmacologically rational. The anti-inflammatory and antispasmodic activity addressed the symptoms even when the underlying infection was beyond what the botanical preparation could reach. Treating what could be treated with what was available was the entirety of the available strategy. Number 9. Wild plum bark for the cough that would not stop. Prunus americana, wild plum, provided Cherokee communities with the same prunicin cough suppressant chemistry as wild cherry bark from a tree that grew more abundantly in the drier soils of the transition zone between the Appalachian forests and the western grasslands. After the Trail of Tears relocated communities to Oklahoma, wild plum was among the first plants Cherokee healers identified as a replacement for the wild cherry bark they had left behind. Number 8. Sweet shrub for fever and pain. Calycanthus floridus, sweet shrub, Carolina allspice, the fragrant bark shrub of moist Appalachian ravines, was used by Cherokee healers for fever and for the pain of headaches and muscle inflammation. The bark, with its distinctive clove-like fragrance, contains calycanthine and related alkaloids with confirmed analgesic and antispasmodic properties. Number 7. Tulip poplar bark, the Trail of Tears medicine. Liriodendron tulipifera, tulip poplar, the tallest native deciduous tree of the eastern forests, provided Cherokee communities with the medicines that Mooney documented as one of the most broadly used in the tradition. Fever, rheumatism, heart complaints, and the malaria that became endemic in Cherokee territory after European contact. On the Trail of Tears, when people were marching in winter with inadequate clothing through unfamiliar territory, the tulip poplar grew along every river corridor of the route. The healers who could identify it in an unfamiliar landscape and prepare the bark tea under march conditions were the ones keeping people alive. Liriodendron and related compounds in the bark have confirmed anti-inflammatory and mild cardiac effects. Number 6. Buttonbush for fever and as eye medicine. Cephalanthus occidentalis, buttonbush, the round-headed flowering shrub of stream banks, was used by Cherokee healers for fever and for the eye infections that crowded living conditions produced. The bark tea reduced fever through confirmed antipyretic activity. The weak tea, cooled and applied as an eye wash, treated the conjunctivitis that spread through communities during illness outbreaks. The plant grew along every creek bank in Cherokee territory, east and west, making it consistently available regardless of season. After relocation, it was one of the plants that required no identification effort because it grew in the same riparian habitat in Oklahoma that it had occupied in the Appalachians. Number 5. Indian pink for intestinal parasites. Spaghlia marilandica, Indian pink, pinkroot, the woodland plant of rich southern forest floors, was the Cherokee anti-parasitic medicine documented in both the Mooney records and in the eclectic medical literature that Cherokee healers influenced. The alkaloid spigoline is directly toxic to roundworm and other intestinal parasites at doses safe for humans, and it has a narrow therapeutic window that made it essential to know the dose precisely. The plant was one of the Cherokee medicines that entered formal American botanical medicine specifically because the clinical results in Cherokee practice were consistent enough that European-descended physicians adopted it by observation. Number 4. Sweet birch sap for pain. Betula lenta, sweet birch, black birch, whose twigs smell unmistakably of wintergreen when broken, provided Cherokee communities with both a tonic spring drink from the sap and a topical pain medicine from the bark oil. Methyl salicylate, aspirin chemistry, is the primary volatile compound. The sap, collected in spring, was drunk as a general tonic with the same reasoning as maple sap. The first liquid rising through the tree after winter carries the concentrated compounds of the dormant plant. The oil from the bark, rubbed into painful joints and muscles, delivered the same aspirin chemistry transdermally. The Cherokee used the whole tree across 2 preparations for 2 different delivery routes of the same pharmacological compound. Number 3. Witch hazel, the Cherokee original. Hamamelis virginiana, witch hazel, the shrub that blooms in late autumn after every other deciduous plant has gone bare, was used by Cherokee healers for wounds, bruises, and the inflammatory skin conditions that outdoor life produced constantly. The Cherokee use of witch hazel predated European contact and predated the commercial distillation of witch hazel that made it a pharmacy staple from the 1880s onward. Number 2. Mayapple root, the cancer connection. Podophyllum peltatum, mayapple, appeared in the Civil War episode as a cathartic. In the Cherokee tradition documented by Mooney, it carried an additional application: small external doses for the growths and skin abnormalities that the community recognized as requiring the plant's specific caustic activity. Podophyltoxin, the primary active compound, became the basis for etoposide, a chemotherapy agent on the World Health Organization's essential medicines list. The Cherokee application for abnormal skin growths was targeting the same cytotoxic mechanism that oncology would identify and develop into cancer treatment. Number 1. Ayunini the swimmer, and what he chose to share. The final entry is a person. Ayunini, called Swimmer by the English speakers who knew him, was the Eastern Band Cherokee healer who spent weeks with James Mooney in 1887 and 1888 sharing the formulas that became the Swimmer manuscript. He was in his 50s. He had lived his entire life in the North Carolina mountains where the Eastern Band had remained after refusing to walk to Oklahoma. He understood exactly what sharing his knowledge with an outside researcher meant: the risk of appropriation, and the certainty that the knowledge would leave the community in a form the community could not control. He shared it anyway because he also understood the other risk: that if it was not written down by someone, it might not survive at all. Every plant on this list exists in documented form because one man made a difficult judgment and shared what he knew. Subscribe to Forgotten American Ways. The debt to Ayunini has never been adequately paid. 25 remedies that survived a forced march of 1,000 miles, a blight that took the chestnut, a century of policies designed to erase the culture that carried them, and the simple passage of time that erases everything eventually. They survived because people chose to remember and because one healer chose to share. Subscribe to Forgotten American Ways. This knowledge is still here. It almost wasn't.